48 Shoftim Judges. Shoftim Judges. Parashah 48 Shoftim Judges. Torah Devarim. Deuteronomy 16, 18, 21, 9. Haftarah Yesha Isaiah 51, 12, 52, 12. Messianic adaptation conclude the reading at 53, 12. Hadashah Mattityahu, Matthew 5, 38, 42, 18, 15, 20. Acts 3, 13, 26, 7, 35, 53. 1 Corinthians 5, 9, 13. 1 Timothy 5, 17, 22. Messianic Jews, Hebrews 10, 28, 31. Torah Devarim, Deuteronomy 16, 18, 21, 9. 16, 18. You are to appoint judges and officers for all your gates, in the cities, Adonai your God is giving you, tribe by tribe, and they are to judge the people with righteous judgment. You are not to distort justice or show favoritism, and you are not to accept a bribe, for a gift blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of even the upright. Justice, only justice, you must pursue, so that you will live and inherit the land Adonai your God is giving you. You are not to plant any sort of tree as a sacred pole beside the altar of Adonai your God that you will make for yourselves. Likewise, do not set up a standing stone. Adonai your God hates such things. 17:1. You are not to sacrifice to Adonai your God a cow or sheep that has a defect or anything wrong with it, that would be an abomination to Adonai your God. If there is found among you, within any of your gates, in any city that Adonai your God gives you, a man or woman who does what Adonai your God sees as wicked, transgressing his covenant by going and serving other gods and worshipping them, the sun, the moon, or anything in the sky, something I have forbidden and it is told to you, or you hear about it, then you are to investigate the matter diligently. If it is true, if it is confirmed that such detestable things are being done in Israel, then you are to bring the man or woman who has done this wicked thing to your city gates, and stone that man or woman to death. The death sentence is to be carried out only if there was testimony from 2 or 3 witnesses. He may not be sentenced to death on the testimony of only one witness. The witnesses are to be the first to stone him to death. Afterwards, all the people are to stone him. Thus you will put an end to this wickedness among you. If a case comes before you at your city gate which is too difficult for you to judge, concerning bloodshed, civil suit, personal injury or any other controversial issue, you are to get up, go to the place which Adonai your God will choose, and appear before the Kohanim, who are Levim, and the judge in office at the time. Seek their opinion, and they will render a verdict for you. You will then act according to what they have told you there in that place which Adonai will choose. You are to take care to act according to all their instructions. In accordance with the Torah they teach you, you are to carry out the judgment they render, not turning aside to the right or the left from the verdict they declare to you. Anyone presumptuous enough not to pay attention to the Kohen appointed there to serve Adonai your God or to the judge, that person must die. Thus you will exterminate such wickedness from Israel. All the people will hear about it and be afraid to continue acting presumptuously. When you have entered the land Adonai your God is giving you, have taken possession of it and are living there, you may say, I want to have a king over me, like all the other nations around me. In that event, you must appoint as king the one whom Adonai your God will choose. He must be one of your kinsmen. This king you appoint over you. You are forbidden to appoint a foreigner over you who is not your kinsman. However, he is not to acquire many horses for himself. Have the people return to Egypt to obtain more horses, inasmuch as Adonai told you never to go back that way again. Likewise, he is not to acquire many wives for himself, so that his heart will not turn away, and he is not to acquire excessive quantities of silver and gold. When he has come to occupy the throne of his kingdom, he is to write a copy of this Torah for himself in a scroll, from the one the Kohanim and Levim yours. It is to remain with him, and he is to read in it every day, as long as he lives, so that he will learn to fear Adonai his God and keep all the words of this Torah and these laws and obey them, so that he will not think he is better than his kinsman, and so that he will not turn aside either to the right or to the left from the mitzvah. In this way he will prolong his own reign and that of his children in Israel. 18:1 The Kohanim, who are Levim, and indeed the whole tribe of Levi, are not to have a share or an inheritance with Israel. Instead, their support will come from the food offered by fire to Adonai and from whatever else becomes his. They will have no inheritance with their brothers, because Adonai is their inheritance, as he has said to them. The Kohanim will have the right to receive from the people, from those offering a sacrifice, whether ox or sheep, the shoulder, the jowls and the stomach. You will also give him the first fruits of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the first of the fleece of your sheep. For Adonai your God has chosen him from all your tribes to stand and serve in the name of Adonai. him and his sons forever. If a Levi from one of your towns anywhere in Israel where he is living comes, highly motivated, to the place which Adonai will choose, then he will serve there in the name of Adonai his God, just like his kinsmen the Levim who stand and serve in the presence of Adonai. Such a Levi will receive the same share as they do, in addition to what he may receive from selling his inherited ancestral property. When you enter the land Adonai your God is giving you, you are not to learn how to follow the abominable practices of those nations. There must not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through fire, a diviner, a soothsayer, an enchanter, a sorcerer, a spellcaster, a consulter of ghosts or spirits, or a necromancer, for whoever does these things is detestable to Adonai, and because of these abominations Adonai your God is driving them out ahead of you. You must be wholehearted with Adonai your God, for these nations, which you are about to dispossess, listen to soothsayers and diviners, but you, Adonai your God does not allow you to do this. Adonai will raise up for you a prophet like me from among yourselves, from your own kinsmen. You are to pay attention to him, just as when you were assembled at Horeb and requested Adonai your God, don't let me hear the voice of Adonai my God anymore, or let me see this great fire ever again. If I do, I will die on that occasion. Adonai said to me, they are right in what they are saying. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their kinsmen. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I order him. Whoever doesn't listen to my words, which you will speak in my name, will have to account for himself to me. But if a prophet presumptuously speaks a word in my name which I didn't order him to say, or if he speaks in the name of other gods, then the prophet must die. You may be wondering, how are we to know if a word has not been spoken by Adonai? When a prophet speaks in the name of Adonai, and the prediction does not come true, that is, the word is not fulfilled and Adonai did not speak that word, the prophet who said it spoke presumptuously, you have nothing to fear from him. 19:1 When Adonai your God cuts off the nations whose land Adonai your God is giving you, and you take their place and settle in their cities and houses, you are to set aside 3 cities for yourselves in your land that Adonai your God is giving you to possess. Divide the territory of your land, which Adonai your God is having you inherit, into 3 parts, and prepare the roads, so that any killer can flee to these cities. The killer who will live if he flees there is someone who has killed his fellow member of the community by mistake, who did not hate him in the past. An example would be if a man goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood and takes a stroke with the axe to fell a tree, but the head of the axe flies off the handle, hits his neighbor and kills him. Then he is to flee to one of these cities and lie there. Otherwise the next of kin avenger, in the heat of his anger, may pursue the killer, overtake him because the distance, to the city of refuge, is long, and strike him dead even though he didn't deserve to die, inasmuch as he had hated him in the past. This is why I am ordering you to set aside for yourselves 3 cities. If Adonai your God expands your territory, as he swore to your ancestors that he would, and gives you all the land he promised to give to your ancestors provided you keep and observe all these mitzvot I am giving you today, loving Adonai your God and always following his ways, then you are to add 3 more cities for yourselves, besides these 3, so that innocent blood will not be shed in the land Adonai your God is giving you as an inheritance, and thus blood guilt to be on you. However, if someone hates his fellow member of the community, lies in wait for him, attacks him, strikes him a death blow, and then flees into one of these cities, then the leaders of his own town are to send and bring him back from there and hand him over to the next of kin avenger, to be put to death. You are not to pity him. Rather, you must put an end to the shedding of innocent blood in Israel, then things will go well with you. You are not to move your neighbor's boundary marker from the place where people put it long ago, in the inheritance soon to be yours in the land Adonai your God is giving you to possess. One witness alone will not be sufficient to convict a person of any offense or sin of any kind. The matter will be established only if there are 2 or 3 witnesses testifying against him. If a malicious witness comes forward and gives false testimony against someone, then both the men involved in the controversy are to stand before Adonai. Before the Kohanim and the judges in office at the time, the judges are to investigate carefully. If they find that the witness is lying and has given false testimony against his brother, you are to do to him what he intended to do to his brother. In this way, you will put an end to such wickedness among you. Those who remain will hear about it, be afraid and no longer commit such wickedness among you. Show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. 21 When you go out to fight your enemies and see horses, chariots and a force larger than yours, you are not to be afraid of them, because Adonai your God, who brought you up from the land of Egypt, is with you. When you are about to go into battle, the Kohen is to come forward and address the people. He should tell them, listen, Israel, you are about to do battle against your enemies. Don't be faint-hearted or afraid, don't be alarmed or frightened by them. Because Adonai your God is going with you to fight on your behalf against your enemies and give you victory. Then the officials will speak to the soldiers. They are to say, is there a man here who has built a new house, but isn't dedicated it yet? He should go back home now, otherwise he may die fighting, and another man will dedicate it. Is there a man here who has planted a vineyard, but isn't yet made use of its fruit? He should go back home, otherwise he may die fighting, and another man will use it. Is there a man here who is engaged to a woman, but isn't married her yet? He should go back home, otherwise he may die fighting, and another man will marry her. The officials will then add to what they have said to the soldiers, is there a man here who is afraid and faint-hearted? He should go back home, otherwise his fear may demoralize his comrades as well. When the officials have finished speaking with the soldiers, commanders are to be appointed to lead the army. When you advance on a town to attack it, first offer it terms for peace. If it accepts the terms for peace and opens its gates to you, then all the people there are to be put to forced labor and work for you. However, if they refuse to make peace with you but prefer to make war against you, you are to put it under siege. When Adonai your God hands it over to you, you are to put every male to the sword. However, you are to take as booty for yourself the women, the little ones, the livestock, and everything in the city, all its spoil. Yes, you will feed on your enemy's spoil, which Adonai your God has given you. This is what you are to do to all the towns which are at a great distance from you, which are not the towns of these nations. As for the towns of these peoples, which Adonai your God is giving you as your inheritance, you are not to allow anything that breathes to live. Rather you must destroy them completely, the Hittite, the Amori, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivi and the Yebusi, as Adonai your God has ordered you, so that they won't teach you to follow their abominable practices, which they do for their gods, thus causing you to sin against Adonai your God. When, in making war against a town in order to capture it, you lay siege to it for a long time, you are not to destroy its trees, cutting them down with an axe. You can eat their fruit, so don't cut them down. After all, are the trees in the field human beings, so that you have to besiege them too? However, if you know that certain trees provide no food, you may destroy them and cut them down, in order to build siege works against the town making war with you, until it falls. 21:1 If, in the land Adonai your God is giving you to possess, a murder victim is found lying in the countryside, and the perpetrator of the murder is not known, then your leaders and judges are to go out and measure the distance between the murder victim and the surrounding towns. After it has been determined which town is the closest, the leaders of that town are to take a young female cow that has never been put to work or yoked for use as a draft animal. The leaders of that town are to bring the heifer down to a wadi with a stream in it that never dries up, to a place that is neither plowed nor sown, and they are to break the cow's neck there in the wadi. Then the Kohanim, who are Levim, are to approach. For Adonai your God has chosen them to serve him and to pronounce blessings in the name of Adonai. They will decide the outcome of every dispute and matter involving violence. All the leaders of the town nearest the murder victim are to wash their hands over the cow whose neck was broken in the wadi. Mafti, then they are to speak up and say, this blood was not shed by our hands, nor have we seen who did it. Adonai, forgive your people Israel, whom you redeemed. Do not allow innocent blood to be shed among your people Israel, and they will be forgiven this bloodshed. Thus you will banish the shedding of innocent blood from among you, by doing what Adonai sees as right. Haftarah Yesha Isaiah 51:12-52:12, Messianic adaptation conclude the reading at 53:12-51:12 Yes, I am the one who comforts you. Why are you afraid of a man, who must die? Of a human being, who will wither like grass? You have forgotten Adonai, your Maker, who stretched out the heavens, and laid the foundations of the earth. Instead, you are in constant fear all day, because of the oppressor's rage, as he prepares to destroy. But where is the oppressor's rage? The captive will soon be set free, he will not die and go down to Sheol. On the contrary, his food supply will be secure, for I am Adonai your God, who stirs up the sea, who makes its waves roar. Adonai Tzvaot is my name. I have put my words in your mouth, and covered you with the shadow of my hand, in order to plant the skies, anew, lay the foundations of the earth, anew, and say to Zion, you are my people. Awake, awake. Stand up, Yerushalayim. At Adonai's hand you drank the cup of his fury, you have drained to the dregs. the goblet of drunkenness. There is no one to guide her, among all the sons she has borne. Not one of all the children she raised, is taking her by the hand. These two disasters have overcome you, yet who will grieve with you? Plunder and destruction, famine and sword. By whom can I comfort you? Your children lie helpless at every street corner, like an antelope trapped in a net. They are full of Adonai's fury, and the rebuke of your God. Therefore, please hear this in your affliction, you who are drunk, but not with wine. This is what your Lord Adonai says, your God, who defends his people. Here, I have removed from your hand the cup of drunkenness, the goblet of my fury. You will never drink it again. I will put it in the hands of your tormentors, who said to you, bend down, so we can trample you. And you flattened your back on the ground, like a street for them to walk on. 52:1 Awake, awake, Zion, clothe yourself with your strength, dress in your splendid garments. Jerusalem, the holy city, for the uncircumcised and the unclean, will enter you no more. Shake off the dust, arise, be enthroned, Jerusalem, loosen the chains on your neck. Captive daughter of Zion, for thus says Adonai, you are sold for nothing, and you will be redeemed without money. For thus says Adonai Elohim, long ago my people went down to Egypt, to live there as aliens, and Asher oppressed them for no reason. So now, what should I do here, asks Adonai, since my people were carried off for nothing? Their oppressors are howling, says Adonai, and my name is always being insulted, daily. Therefore my people will know my name, therefore on that day they will know that I, the one speaking here I am. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, proclaiming shalom, bringing good news, have good things, announcing salvation, and saying to Zion, your God is king. Listen, your watchmen are raising their voices, shouting for joy together, for they will see, before their own eyes, Adonai returning to Zion. Break out into joy, sing together, you ruins of Jerusalem, for Adonai has comforted his people, he has redeemed Jerusalem. Adonai has bared his holy arm, in the sight of every nation, and all the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. Leave, leave, get out of there, don't touch anything unclean, get out from inside it, and be clean. You who carry Adonai's temple equipment, you need not leave in haste, you do not have to flee, for Adonai will go ahead of you, and the God of Israel will also be behind you. Pirit Hadashah Mattityahu, Matthew 5:38-42, 18:15-20. Acts 3:13-26, 7:35-53, 1 Corinthians 5:9-13, 1 Timothy 5:17-22, Messianic Jews, Hebrews 10:28-31, Matthew 5:38. You have heard that our fathers were told, eye for eye and tooth for tooth, but I tell you not to stand up against someone who does you wrong. On the contrary, if someone hits you on the right cheek, let him hit you on the left cheek too. If someone wants to sue you for your shirt, let him have your coat as well. And if a soldier forces you to carry his pack for 1 mile, carry it for 2. When someone asks you for something, give it to him. When someone wants to borrow something from you, lend it to him. Matthew 18:15. Moreover, if your brother commits a sin against you, go and show him his fault but privately, just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you have won back your brother. If he doesn't listen, take 1 or 2 others with you so that every accusation can be supported by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to hear them, tell the congregation. And if he refuses to listen even to the congregation, treat him as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Yes, I tell you people that whatever you prohibit on earth will be prohibited in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. To repeat, I tell you that if 2 of you here on earth agree about anything people ask, it will be for them from my Father in heaven. For wherever 2 or 3 are assembled in my name, I am there with them. Acts 3:13. The God of Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, the God of our fathers, has glorified his servant Yeshua, the same Yeshua you handed over and disowned before Pilate. Even after he had decided to release him, you denied the holy and innocent one, and instead asked for the reprieve of a murderer. You killed the author of life, but God has raised him from the dead. Of this we are witnesses, and it is through putting trust in his name that his name has given strength to this man whom you see and know. Yes, it is the trust that comes through Yeshua which has given him this perfect healing in the presence of you all. Now, brothers, I know that you did not understand the significance of what you were doing, neither did your leaders. But this is how God fulfilled what he had announced in advance, when he spoke through all the prophets, namely, that his Messiah was to die. Therefore, repent and turn to God, so that your sins may be erased, so that times of refreshing may come from the Lord's presence, and he may send the Messiah appointed in advance for you, that is, Yeshua. He has to remain in heaven until the time comes for restoring everything, as God said long ago, when he spoke through the holy prophets. For Moshe himself said, "And I will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your brothers. You are to listen to everything he tells you. Everyone who fails to listen to the prophet will be removed from the people and destroyed." Indeed, all the prophets announced these days, starting with Shmuel and continuing through all who followed, "You are the sons of the prophets, and you are included in the covenant which God made with our fathers when he said to Abraham, 'By your seed will all the families of the earth be blessed.' So it is to you first that God has sent his servant whom he has raised up, so that he might bless you by turning each one of you from your evil ways." Acts 7:35. This Moshe, whom they rejected, saying, "Who made you a ruler and judge?" is the very one whom God sent as both ruler and ransomer by means of the angel that appeared to him in the thorn bush. This man led them out, performing miracles and signs in Egypt, at the Red Sea and in the wilderness for 40 years. This is the Moshe who said to the people of Israel, "God will raise up a prophet like me from among your brothers." This is the man who was in the assembly in the wilderness, accompanied by the angel that had spoken to him at Mount Sinai and by our fathers, the man who was given living words to pass on to us. But our fathers did not want to obey him. On the contrary, they rejected him and in their hearts turned to Egypt, saying to Aaron, "Make us some gods to lead us. Because this Moshe, who led us out of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him." That was when they made an idol in the shape of a calf and offered a sacrifice to it and held a celebration in honor of what they had made with their own hands. So God turned away from them and gave them over to worship the stars, as has been written in the book of the prophets. People of Israel, it was not to me that you offered slaughtered animals and sacrifices for 40 years in the wilderness. No, you carried the tent of Molech, and the star of your god Rephan, the idols you made so that you could worship them. Therefore, I will send you into exile beyond Babel. Our fathers had the tent of witness in the wilderness. It had been made just as God, who spoke to Moshe, had ordered it made, according to the pattern Moshe had seen. Later on, our fathers who had received it brought it in with Yahusha when they took the land away from the nations that God drove out before them. So it was until the days of David. He enjoyed God's favor and asked if he might provide a dwelling place for the God of Yaakov, and Shlomo did build him a house. But he does not live in places made by hand, as the prophet says, "Heaven is my throne," says Adonai, "and the earth is my footstool." What kind of house could you build for me? What kind of place could you devise for my rest? Didn't I myself make all these things? Stiff-necked people, with uncircumcised hearts and ears, you continually oppose the Ruach HaKodesh. You do the same things your fathers did. Which of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? They killed those who told in advance about the coming of the Tzaddik, and now you have become his betrayers and murderers. You, who receive the Torah as having been delivered by angels but do not keep it. 1 Corinthians 5:9. In my earlier letter I wrote you not to associate with people who engage in sexual immorality. I didn't mean the sexually immoral people outside your community, or the greedy, or the thieves, or the idol worshippers, for then you would have to leave the world altogether. No, what I wrote you was not to associate with anyone who is supposedly a brother but who also engages in sexual immorality, is greedy, worships idols, is abusive, gets drunk or steals. With such a person you shouldn't even eat. For what business is it of mine to judge outsiders? Isn't it those who are part of the community that you should be judging? God will judge those who are outside. Just expel the avildo from among yourselves. 1 Timothy 5:17. The leaders who led well should be considered worthy of double honor, especially those working hard at communicating the word and at teaching. For the Tanakh says, "You are not to muzzle an ox when it is treading out the grain." In other words, the worker deserves his wages. Never listen to any accusation against a leader unless it is supported by 2 or 3 witnesses. Rebuke before the whole assembly those leaders who continue sinning, as a warning to the others. Before God, the Messiah Yeshua, and the chosen angels, I solemnly charge you to observe these instructions, not prejudging and not doing anything out of favoritism. Do not be hasty in granting a smicha to anyone, and do not share in other people's sins. Keep yourself pure. Hebrews 10:28. Someone who disregards the Torah of Moshe is put to death without mercy on the word of 2 or 3 witnesses. Think how much worse will be the punishment deserved by someone who has trampled underfoot the Son of God, who has treated as something common the blood of the covenant which made him holy, and who has insulted the Spirit, giver of God's grace. For the one we know is the one who said, Vengeance is my responsibility, I will repay. And then said, Adonai will judge his people. It is a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living God.